Happy post-Passover, everybody. Hope everybody's doing well and learning how to deal with our current circumstances and the challenging situation. But as we find ourselves now post-Passover, hope everybody enjoyed a good piece of chametz already. Even though Passover food has its own unique experience, but getting back to our chametz. In New York, they have this, after Passover, a lot of times they have this big rush of they actually do it as a fundraiser to be able to sell the first piece of pizza that comes out of the oven. So I'm sure everybody's had some good chametz by now. But besides that, we don't put Passover behind us. The idea is to take Passover and to take that which the Passover experience and bring it really into our lives here in this post-Passover experience. The day today after any holiday is called Isru Chag, the day after a holiday, and it has a special energy. And it's that day that we are supposed to take the energy of the holiday that just left, that is just exited from, and to bring it into our lives in a real way that we should be able to move on with it, with the experiences of that holiday. And the experience of Pesach is to liberate ourselves perhaps from some character traits or habits or things that we really felt were not allowing us to fulfill our true full potential, and to liberate ourselves from them. And the issue I'd like to talk about today is actually in the time period that we find ourselves right now, post-Passover, is known as the time of the counting of the Omer. The time of the counting of the Omer, we started counting the Omer on the second day of Passover, and we count 49 days till this upcoming holiday of Shavuos, which hopefully we'll all be able to be together and celebrate in the synagogue at that time. I have to tell you, I went to the synagogue yesterday. I went to Chabad and said Yisker for the many, many people that have asked me to say, and I recounted each and everyone's name, thinking about them and their loved ones while saying the Yisker. And the echoing sound of Chabad is actually deafening, and I'm looking forward to be able to hear all the noise in the building again soon as we're all reunited together. But as I said, this time period is called the counting of the Omer, but this Omer period is also a time of mourning. It is a time when there's many restrictions. We don't get married, we don't have very festive occasions, we don't take haircuts, and so on and so forth. It's a mourning period. What is the mourning period? The mourning period is for a time in history where there was actually a plague. And the plague fell upon the 24,000 students of Rabbi Akiva. And they all died during that time period, between Pesach and Shavuos. And because of that, this is a mourning period, for us to remember the loss of their lives. But it's not just to remember the loss of their lives. Many more people have died in Jewish history, but it's also to remember the reason of why there was a plague. And Jewish tradition tells us that the reason for the plague upon the 24,000 students of Rabbi Akiva, Shalai Nahagu Kavod Zebazem. They were disrespectful one to another. And that needs to be analyzed. We're talking over here about Talmudic greats. Rabbi Akiva is one of the greatest teachers of the Talmud. And Rabbi Akiva actually is the one that taught us, V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, ze klal gadol b'Torah. That love your fellow as yourself is one of the greatest principles of the Torah. So how is it that his students, his prime students, his disciples were particularly the ones that disrespected one another? And the answer is that they actually loved each other, but they misunderstood what it meant to love each other and to respect each other and to love one another. What happened was each one really, really felt, honestly, genuinely felt, that their opinion in interpreting a particular verse of the Torah or a particular behavior to be according to Torah was the right way. And therefore they could not tolerate when somebody else was doing it wrong. If you care for somebody, you want to make sure that they're doing it right. And because of that, this created a disrespect from one another, to the point where Jewish tradition tells us that this brought a plague upon them, and unfortunately the loss of life for the 24,000 students of Rabbi Akiva. Well, the end of that story is that Rabbi Akiva had 5 students, great students, who actually survived that plague and actually passed on his teachings in a more correct way. And thanks to them, we have the many, many teachings of the oral Torah with us here today. But there's a lesson. The reason why we mourn this period is because there's a lesson to our lives as well. And I think this might be a challenge of today's generation. When we say disrespecting one another or disrespecting the opinion of another person, that might be an area where we can all improve a little bit. A way to be able to get rid of the current plague that is upon us is always by doing something, by doing a mitzvah, by strengthening, by putting behind us a bad habit and deciding we're going to do things in a better way. Now, the question we can ask in a bigger, broader picture is, why everything that God does, he does for the good. Why would God cause that different people have different opinions? In the first place, the Talmud says, "Shem she'ein partzufeim shavos, ein doseim shavos." Just like no two people look alike, no two people think alike. Well, that's part of human nature. Well, why did God make it that way? And the answer is, it's okay. It's okay for people to have different opinions. As a matter of fact, it wouldn't be good if everybody thought the same way. If I had an opinion, or you have an opinion, or somebody comes up with a cure for the coronavirus and they have this great idea, they can't just run with it. You need to run it by somebody else. You want somebody to challenge it. When you have an opinion in Talmudic, if anybody ever studied a good page of Talmud, what happens is you actually argue it out. You give your opinion. You want the other person to oppose it so you could crystallize and figure out where your opinion is correct, where it's not correct. So God gave us this gift of differing opinions. When you have an opinion, you share it. Somebody else, they share their opinion, and we try to crystallize it. How do we get to the truth? Where does this apply? Where does it not apply? You know, if you're getting ready to submit some great paper and somebody goes to their professor and asks their professor to review it before they submit it, they don't want their professor just to say, sure, it's wonderful, it's great. They want their professor to critique it to make sure they could crystallize it and make sure they come up with the best opinion possible. And that is the same thing. It's okay. It's human nature. No two people think alike, but we need to respect each other. And we have to realize that it's okay to have differing opinions, and it's okay if the other person doesn't think just like I think, and I still have to love and respect them. And maybe there's something I can learn when I'm listening to the other person's opinion. Someone once taught me many years ago, and they said that when you're talking, you're saying what you already know. When you're listening, you actually might learn something. So let us hope we can all learn from this, and let us hope that we can all leave Passover and this Omer period to be able to experience a little more respect one for another, whether it's opposite political opinions or the way we look at the world or anything else. And let us hope that we should be able to really create a good unity amongst ourselves, a time to stop and reflect. It actually tells us that in Jewish history, there was times where people had to be actually isolated if they had a certain impurity, a nega, a tzaras, which is called different types of impurity. They were isolated. The purpose that the Torah gives for that isolation is reflection. A person to see how do they come out of that isolation as a better, stronger part of society and a better person. So as we all, we have to learn how to deal with this cabin fever. I'm sure everybody's getting a little antsy with this idea that we can't all be together. But let us use this time for some time of reflection and figuring out how we could come out of this better people, more respectful people, respecting one another, and really follow the real teachings of Rabbi Akiva, V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, love your fellow as yourself. And Jewish tradition tells us, and we say it every day in the Amidah, Barcheinu Avinu Kulanu Koechad, bless us, our Father, as we are united as one. Ein keli machzik brach, there's no vessel that brings about God's blessing as true unity from all people together. Let us hope that we can work on that. I'm sure we're all doing great, but we could all do a little better. And let us hope that through that we should actually merit the blessings from God, and let him take, just like he got rid of the plague in the times of Rabbi Akiva, may God get rid of this plague, and we should all be able to celebrate this Omer period as a time of joy and a time of happiness, and we should all be reunited very soon together and hear all the noise and be able to have our good arguments and good discussions all together. May it be quickly and speedily. May we merit to see that very, very soon. Shabbat Shalom, and have a great Shabbat. Thank you.